This is Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell on the Forge Audio Network.
Forge fans, welcome back to Forge Daily and the last episode for this week. We are quickly approaching another match day. Today is July 7th, 2023. I'm your host, Mackenzie Barwell, here to give you all things Forge FC. We've got an exciting episode today as I am joined by York United alumni and Onesoccer analyst, Jordan Wilson, for the second time now. Today we discussed everything from his experience playing Forge and what has changed since we spoke earlier this season. So let's get right into it and enjoy the interview. Okay, well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming back again. I'm really happy to have you.
No problem. Thank you, Mac. Appreciate it.
I feel like a lot has changed since we last talked about the matchup
Crazy.
leading up to that game. Can you just touch on what you've seen from both teams since then, in terms of their performance?
It's a weird feeling, to be honest, because I'm looking at York and I left the club and maybe I'm feeling like I was the problem because they're just playing some top football. They really are. They seem like they like each other. There's chemistry within the squad. And they're finding a way to get wins. Like even a day where it might be close or they're not top form, they're still getting a win. I think that's so important in this league because sometimes if you're not playing your best, you maybe get a point. But York's finding a way to get 3 points more often than not, and that's why they're second in the table. And I think with Forge, it's just we know what we can expect from them when they're playing well, but they just haven't been playing at the top that we know they could play. They're probably operating at like a 7 out of 10, and it's just not allowing them to get 3 points and be at the top of the table.
I remember you saying that for the past 2 seasons, you were a part of a back line that kept the team in games a lot of the time. And now, of course, you're seeing such a strong offensive group, including players like Baya, who we talked about. He's a constant threat on the right side. And then Jeremy, how do you pronounce his last name? I don't want to mess this up.
Gagnon Lapare?
Yes.
Yeah. It's French, so you just have to throw a little accent aigu.
Okay, a little accent. I'll leave that one to you, Jordan. You can keep
as long it was a good effort.
But he's also contributed a ton in terms of the attacking from York. Can you touch on what their strengths are from an offensive perspective right now?
I think that they have guys that are in and around the box that are comfortable on the ball. So like a Jeremy Gagnon Lapare, Lou, I thought he's gotten better every single time that he's played. Mo Babuli, former Forge threat and just a dangerous guy to play against. Osazi De Rosario, Brian Wright, even though those two, I was expecting more goals from them personally, there's still a handful game in and game out, week in and week out. So I think it's just more of a committee. I think now you can't really say, hey, these are the guys on York that you have to nullify. There's just a bit of a different spice. There's a couple of other factors with their players, at least in this moment halfway through the season. This is how they're playing, with a lot of confidence and a lot of killers.
For sure. It does seem like these guys are kind of building a foundation, too. I'm going to say that I do trust your judgment because I don't know if you remember what you said last time, but the first guy you mentioned was Bren Samaro, who nearly scored from half at the last Forge York matchup. So
were you on the touchline when that happened?
Yeah, I jaw on the floor. I don't know, man. There was a lot of gasps, but I was just like, what just happened? I nearly missed it. I was like,
I just think that normally in past seasons when you play against Forge, defensively they're sound. You don't really get many chances. And then you know that they don't need many to score. And I just think on both of those ends, it's just been lacking a bit to date. Now, I will say this. Forge is 19 points. They have 19 points, and they're third place. York has 20. So you're playing not your best football, and you're still in a clear-cut playoff position. It's just different because everyone's like, this is a powerhouse. But it's hard to maintain that and to be that every season. I will say for Forge, they can only go up in my opinion because I think we've seen like their pit, how low they could be in terms of not having their big dog showing up. But if two of them start to turn the corner for the second half of the season, and they're already in third right now, they'll be competing with the first place spot. And then also I think they'll be playing in that game, that first or second place game, to see if you're going to host the final. So you're still okay. You're still in that realm. I just think now with 14 games, you're over the hump of halfway through the season that they need to turn it around to start calling themselves that team. They're already a dynasty. They're already, for me, they play some of the best football in the CPL, but they just have to show it every year. And I think Taron Campbell is a name you gotta talk about because this is a guy for me. Everyone was talking about Pasillas and Hamilton, even myself. I wasn't thinking that he was going to be a starting 9, but I think that he's done well.
Yeah.
Pasillas coming off the wing, he has potential. I think at Jordan Hamilton, Jay Hams, you're just waiting for a big performance from him because you know that he has the quality. Tristan Borges, I thought about 2 weeks ago he played well, and then I think Halifax did okay, but you're just looking for your wingers or your big names to bring some product. And you know Tristan, honestly, gem of the earth. He's a good guy, but also just a phenomenal player. It's a lot to ask of your attacking players to always be there. But I think for him to just chip away bit by bit and show his product, it just helps the overall squad. So I know these guys. I know Bobby has these guys humble and ready to work. And at some point, it should break for them.
I want to go back to what you said earlier. Forge definitely still in it. They've got 19 while York has 20 points. Do you think that because of this circumstance that there is a little bit of added pressure, or maybe even York coming into this feeling a little bit more confident, or from your experience as a player, does that not really play a factor in these games?
I think I don't think York is like overconfident. I think they're confident that they can pull off a win if they play well.
Yeah.
I think they have momentum, even though they lost to Calgary a few weeks back. They've won more games, right? There hasn't been a time ever in the CPL where halfway through the season York has had more points than Forge.
Are we halfway through?
Well, not every team, but there's 28 games and both York and Forge have played 14. Okay. So it's gonna be the 15th game. So yeah, we're literally close. On the downhill now. Which is another thing. Some teams have only played 12 games, so they're not quite there yet. But for Forge and York, this is a huge match because that 15th game, if one of them can get 3 points, I think it will just help them down the stretch.
Okay, my last thing for you, Jordan, now having the perspective as an analyst, but also your experience as a player, have you noticed any shifts in this 905 Darby at all, or do you feel like the evolution has been relatively consistent up until now?
Yeah, there's been a shift. I think the last time we spoke, Mac, I was saying that I want to see that we don't like Forge or we hate playing against York mentality. I think that last match, that late winner against Forge, kind of sparked something a little bit. But I think mostly it's just about where both these teams are in the league. And also, too, I think the big thing with York before, where there were some local guys like myself, like grew up in Mississauga. So, like, the Beckers, the Morgans, the Borges, like, you knew these players, Dom Samuel, like, you knew of them, Tristan Henry, you knew of them growing up. So you kind of want to be, like, the big dog on the day and make sure you beat them. I think that's kind of been a bit removed, at least from York's perspective, because it's just a team that's they're not really from this area. They're a mix from everywhere. But in terms of that local derby, a team that you want to beat that's close to you, I think that's still present. But I think it's more about the season.
Yeah.
Like 20 points for York, 19 for Forge. Whoever wins this match really puts themselves in a good position.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the tie, it's like, okay, that's maybe both these teams obviously get a point higher, but if you can get a win, it just really puts you in a good position.
Sure.
Forge, if you go and win 19 points, that turns into 22, you kind of absolve your sins a little bit. Like, yeah, it's been rough, but you won a big game, and then you're in clear second place. But you also have to remember with Forge that Calgary and Halifax that are in 4th and 5th have only played 12 games, and they're on 18 points and 16 points. So you have to start thinking at a point that they have 2 games in hand, and you're going to play these teams as well twice again. You have to start like separating yourself a little bit, because for Forge, it'd be so weird to see them in that mumble jumble, that 4th place spot. That's just not the Forge that we really know. Yeah.
Jordan, you're not far away. Are you coming down the QEW for this match on Sunday?
Honestly, I had it planned. I was ready to go. I was bringing the fam, but then I had to cover the game and Canada and the US in the Gold Cup. So the quarterfinals, I will be in studio, but I will be watching for sure. And I'm hoping Canada win. That's the win that I want to see for the day. But then in terms of CPL, I just want to see a good match. Of course, there's a bit of me that is still like, yeah, I want York to win.
I'm cutting this out. I know.
Yeah, the team that deserves to win, I want them to win.
I really, really appreciate you coming on again. I always enjoy these conversations, so thank you so much.
No problem, Mac. Thanks for having me.
All right, that is all I have for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening, as always. If you can, come on down the QEW and watch your Forge FC take on York United away on Sunday. Last time there were a ton of fans, lots of staff came, so it is absolutely guaranteed to be a good time. I hope to see you there, but if not, as always, you can stream the game on Onesoccer.
This has been Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share.